So this build is primarily going to be based around a 1 pound camping propane. They also make these for torches. They're essentially the same, but these are cheaper. I'm using this adapter, which goes where it fits onto these, and then goes to 1/4-inch threads, which I use like the NPT, I think, which is like air compressors. Then I have a barbed piece. I think this is 1/4-inch. And again, NPT. Hose clamps that fit on, this is an old hose off of a, just a propane furnace I used to have in my shop that doesn't work anymore. So I scavenged it. I have seen ones of these that you can buy that actually are adapted to these, so you don't have to have these parts, but this is what I have, so it's what I'm using. Other side, we have the same adapter and hose clamp, and that will attach to just an air compressor blowgun. And I've got the best results with it if I take, this is just a part that screws off, but I take a piece of, this is just 1/4-inch steel tube. I had this lying around, but I'm going to epoxy it, probably using JB Weld into that, which extends the barrel a little bit more, and it gets a little better pressure. If you don't have that, I also found that you can get these, and this works pretty well too, but again, just not as well. And then I'm going to have a can, just, metal can, around that to kind of keep things from coming back in, to give it more of a post-apocalyptic look. My ignition system is going to be just an arc lighter. What I'm going to do is tear apart this end here and attach wires to it. Again, I'll probably have more of this just steel tube in it, to where it goes in front of the whole thing to ignite it, because if you're holding this out in front, well, I accidentally almost caught my hand on fire during the tests, so that's not a good thing. All I need now is just kind of something to build around. I got an idea. So, courtesy of my neighbors, they don't know I have this yet. Just kidding, this has been sitting in my garage since I moved in. Anyway, I have this is a bike handle. I removed all the handle parts from one side. So this is also going to be my trigger. Gonna have to remove this since I can find a way to actually take it off, and this thing's old and none of the bolts like working. So it's gonna be a pain. So what I'm gonna do now is, well, probably start building up my pieces, starting with just assembling these. Nothing fancy, just basically taking some, what is it, like Teflon tape, putting it on the threads and screwing them together, as well as the other side as well, and then cutting off a chunk of the tube, and I can attach them together using the hose clamps. Okay, you're going to want to make sure you get all these parts tight, because you do not want leaking gas. If you've ever worked with flammable liquid or gas like this, you get a leak, it can go very badly. So, also, don't do this at home. Even though I'm showing you how to do it, I don't recommend doing this. I know what I'm doing, so I know how to do it without getting hurt, but that doesn't necessarily mean everyone is. So, disclaimer, I said don't do it at home. But now what I'm going to do is, well, I'll probably drill out this little hole here, so it's the same size as my tube. I probably won't film that because it's going to be boring, but then I'm just going to JB Weld that in place. And again, probably not going to film just because it's gluing. And I'm just going to screw that in place. And I think I'm ready to cut open my handle so that way this can fit inside. I also need to figure out a way to attach the tank kind of on the side there. And of course, modify my pilot light. That's a really annoying sound, by the way. It's like high-pitched. It's like a taser, but weak. Oh, I forgot to mention that you want to make sure that when this is in, you have enough room for your propane tanks. That way it doesn't rest against that. My main solution to that, and save a bit of space, is I took the handle and I offset it, so that way the tank will actually go underneath a bit. So, very should probably mention that. So, this is a kind of a jump from where you last saw. Things didn't go quite according to plan, and I fought with this thing for at least a day trying to get it to work. But I ended up getting it to work. I went through 3 different valves. I ended up, the bigger one you saw at the very beginning, I ended up using after I drilled a hole accidentally through the first one, long story. And the second one ended up not being strong enough to actually hold the pressure of this tank. This one is empty. It doesn't have anything in it, so it's just sitting on there just as kind of a placeholder. Other than that, I really haven't done much. I basically had to cut a hole in the top for the little trigger, I guess. And then I just unscrewed this and screwed it back on. I removed the rubber tip, and I'm probably going to drill that open a little bit. If it'll focus. Maybe not. Okay. So that way you get a little more flow. But it does work. If I pull down the brake, it will pull that down. Although it's not quite enough to really open up on its own sometimes. So you have to kind of help it. But so far it works. Just using hose clamps to attach it. And yeah, it's been... Once it works, it's like, that was easy. Even though I fought it for 2 days. So, use the heavy ones. I looked up and these things have more than 90 PSI in them, so that's probably why it didn't work very well. So just be safe, get a little better ones. And for the last bit, I guess now, besides maybe just a little bit of reinforcements, which I probably won't film, is getting this to where, you know, it's up here, because I found it has to be a couple inches away to actually ignite. And, well, that basically put your hand near the gas, and I want it to be more back here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this piece here, take some wire. This is 18 gauge, just stuff I got at a hardware store. It's the thinnest wire they had, even though there's a lot of insulation around it. But I'm going to take that bit of solder and yeah, going to solder on a pair of wires onto probably the wires that come out of this. I'll have to tear it apart and see what's there. Run those along here, and I'll probably have a piece of stainless steel tube, similar to what I was using earlier, to hold it in front, so that way it doesn't get covered in stuff, even though the fire's going to be after the spark, so it can really be exposed, but I have it, so I'm going to use it. I hope that made sense. Interesting. I should have brought my respirator in this system. So, this didn't turn out quite as well as I'd hoped. As you saw in the beginning, it kind of had some issues lighting. And, well, the bike handle trigger. It kind of sounded cool in theory, but in practice, didn't work out quite as well. It would have been easier had I used something to just hold this down manually. And for some reason, my pilot light didn't want to work. Although, I've been playing with it since, and it seems to work just fine. So, it was cold when I did it. It's even colder now, so I probably won't be out much. I still want to keep this design. I really like the way this worked, and the basic premise of using this part right here still seemed to work just fine. So I'm hoping that I can redesign it a little bit and make another one. So I'm just going to call this like Mark 1 or something, because I plan on making more of these using this same basic concept in the future. So I hope you enjoyed. As I said before, don't do this at home. I mean, I won't recommend you do this at home, I guess. You know, you're a free person. I can't legally stop you. But I'm also not legally responsible if something goes wrong, because things can go wrong when dealing with fire.